Hello students, today we're doing lesson 6.7, point slope form of linear equations. Okay, so not yesterday, but last week we learned about the slope intercept form. We know their standard form. Now we're going to learn point slope form. Okay, we'll go over all those forms in just a minute. But before we start talking about point slope form, we're going to go back to our slope intercept form. Okay, sorry about that. That was my smoke alarm testing itself, I guess. Okay, so we're going to go over point slope intercept form and how to write that equation. Okay, so let's go back over what it looks like. It looks like this: y equals mx plus b. And remember, m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Okay, so I'm just reminding you of that before we start our example 1. Okay, and this is slope intercept form. We're going to write it a little bit later too, just so that you remember it's not what the title says. Okay, so in example 1, it says find the equation. So all they want you to do is write the equation. Notice my lines on my screen today are not a graph because we are not graphing today. Find the equation of a line with slope 2/3 and y-intercept of 0.5. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this slope intercept form and we're going to put in those other numbers for m and b. Okay, so we know what m is, right? This is m because it's slope. So instead of m, I'm going to write 2/3 x. And then we know what b is because this is the y-intercept. So we only take the y part for b. So that's 5. And that's it. That's how you do your first problems on your homework. They will tell you what y and or slope and y-intercept are, and then you just have to plug them into the equation. So let's try one on your own. I'm going to write it a little bit different though. I'm going to tell you that, well, I'm just going to write it real quick. Slope is 3, y-intercept is 0, -2. So what I want you to do is take this equation and substitute in the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, so hit pause and go ahead and do that now. Okay, you should be back now. So we're going to take this equation and I'm just going to rewrite it again so that you can see where I'm plugging in my numbers. And we have the slope, which is m, is going to be 3x because the slope is 3. And then the b is going to be the -2. So you can either write it like this, plus -2, or you may see when you check the back of the book that they write -2. So either way is correct. I do not take off points for writing it one way or the other. And that's it for example 2. Okay, let's move on to what we came here for today, and that's point slope form. So let's go over all the forms of equations real quick. So we have standard form, and I want you to write this down on your notes, which is ax plus by equals c. We have slope intercept form. That's the one we did in the first 2 equations, or first 2 examples. Slope intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And this is probably one that we use the most in algebra. Okay, and then the last one is point slope form. And I'm about to write that down. Okay, so the reason that we have so many forms is because you may be given different information at different times. So this way you can make an equation no matter which way. So the point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times, and you use a parentheses for that, x minus x1. Okay, so these are the 3 forms that now we know. Okay, And we're going to talk about that point slope one more. So let's write it down right here again. I know that's writing it a lot, but you need to have it memorized. Okay, so we know that M is the slope, right? Same as before. And then this one and this one, the ones that have the little ones next to them, are your Y, the Y in your point and the X in your point. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Now, the other parts, this and this, the parts that just say X and Y, those are going to stay X and Y. Okay, so let's just write stays. Okay, so these stay here. We're not changing those. We're trying to find points for all three of these. Okay, or numbers for all three of these. Okay, so let's go ahead and do an example. Let's do example 3. And it says, find the equation of a line, and so I'm not going to write all that passes through point 1,5 and has a slope of 3. Okay, so you heard what I said talking about what this is. It's a line that passes through that point and it has a slope of 3. So if I was, you do not have to draw this. If I was, if I had a graph, I would have a point at 1,5 and then I would have a slope of 3. So remember, that would be going up 3 and over 1. And so my line would look something like that, right? So they want you to write an equation for that line. So let's say I have this line and I know a point and I could count out its slope. Then how would I write the equation? That's what they're trying to teach you here. So we're going to take this point slope form. I'm going to rewrite it again. I know it's writing it a lot. That helps you remember it. And remember, this and this are staying and everything else is changing. Okay, so the easiest one is my slope. I know my slope is 3. Okay, I know that X is staying and that Y is staying. So I'm just going to leave those there. So now I need to figure out, what does this Y1 and X1 mean? Okay, well, what those are the points here. So this is X1 and this is Y1. So write that above. Make sure that you're writing everything I'm doing, unless I tell you you don't have to write it, like the graph over here. Okay, so X1, it says is 1. So I'm going to put that right here. And Y1 is 5, so I'm going to put that here. Oh, I forgot my equal sign. And that's it. That's my equation that is for this point in this slope. But it doesn't want you to finish there. It wants you to change it. It always, on your homework, will say change to slope-intercept form. Change to slope-intercept form. So let's say you did a test and this is what you gave me for an answer. Okay, I'm gonna take off probably half points or even more, because the directions will tell you to change it to slope-intercept form. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to do Y minus 5, and then we're going to do distributive property here, and that gives me 3X minus 3. Now this is not slope-intercept form yet, because remember, up here on the left-hand side, the Y needs to be all by itself. So let's add 5 to both sides. And now I get Y equals 3X plus 2, because negative 3 plus 5 is 2. And now I have my answer. That is my final answer. I'm going to box it twice just so that you know, because I had another one boxed up here. So this is kind of like the first equation answer, but this is my final one that you should always have. Okay, let's move on to example 4. Okay, so example 4, I want you to do the same thing that we just did. I'm going to give you the slope and a point. So slope is 1/2 and point is negative 3, 2. Now I want you to do the same thing we did before. We're up here on example 3. I want you to take this point slope form and plug in all the numbers, and then I want you to bring it down and change it to slope intercept form. Okay, so pause the video and go ahead and do that now. Okay, everyone should be back. So I'm going to rewrite my equation real quick. You don't have to do this every time. I'm just doing it on notes. You do need to do it on your notes, but not when you're doing your work. Okay, and now I'm going to plug in my numbers. I like to plug in what I know first, the easy part, or at least for showing the kids. And now I'm going to plug in my points. Remember, the point that goes here, that goes next to the y, is the y. So that's the 2. And then the point that goes here is the x, so that's -3. Now notice I have minus a -3. I can change that to be plus a positive, and now I have x plus 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and do my distributive property here. So I have y minus 2 equals 1/2 x plus 3/2. 3 times 1/2 is 3/2. Okay. Do not do any decimals. Remember, I don't want these changed to decimals. Okay, now I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And y'all can do fractions on your calculators. Okay, if you can't figure out what 3/2 plus 2 is right here, this part, then you can always plug it into your calculator. Or you could change the 2 into a fraction. So what is it as halves? 2 is 4/2, right? So then when I add those up, I get 7/2. So that's my answer, is y equals 1/2 x plus 7/2. Okay, do not leave it here, especially on your homework. I will say you did not complete your homework and you will not get points for all of it. Okay, last one, example 5. Write the equation of a line that has slope 0 and its point is -1/6. Okay, so we're just going to plug in. Let me rewrite it here. We're going to plug into this. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and write them. Y1. Oh, you know what? Let me give you a chance to hit pause and do this one on your own. Okay, now that we're back, now I'm going to plug these in. So instead of y1, I'm going to use the 6. The slope is 0. And the x1 is -1. Remember, when you have minus a negative, that's the same as plus a positive. Okay, so now I'm going to change this to slope-intercept form. I need to do 0 times everything over here. Sorry about my smoke detector needs new batteries. Okay, so 0 times x is 0. 0 times 1 is 0. So 0 plus 0 is just 0, so I'm just going to put 0. Okay, so now I have no x. 0 times x is 0x is not x, okay? That would be 1x. So I need to just leave it 0. So now I'm going to add 6 on both sides, and y equals 6. And remember what we said about the ones that are y equals a number or x equals a number? There are certain kind of lines. Y equals a number is a horizontal line. You don't have to write this. You don't have to know this. I mean, you do have to know this, but you don't have to have it in your on your homework. You don't have to write whether it's horizontal or vertical. And then remember, x equals a number would be vertical. I'm just trying to remind y'all, okay, so that you remember. Okay, and that's it for today. And then so your homework is going to look just like the last couple of the first 2 examples where you knew the slope and you knew the y-intercept and you put them into slope-intercept form, and then the ones where you had to put them into point-slope form. So 2 different forms that you're working with today, so don't get confused, okay? Go back and look at your notes if you've forgotten what to do. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks, kids.